අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Thursday, the 8th of June 2023. All things fuel. Minister Kanchana Wijesekara takes the CPC to task over issues and signs a game-changing deal with US and UK firms. More funding. ADB gives Sri Lanka more funding access as the war and economic crisis deepens. Row in Parliament. Minister Derana English confirms 50 new centres of passport processing before an aggressive altercation with another MP.
They refuse to produce their identity. Whatever you say, that is not acceptable. And as the minister in charge of police, I just can't tolerate that kind of thing.
Power cuts during a heat wave, but in Bangladesh. Bangladesh wrestles with scorching temperatures amid power cuts and lack of dollars.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරම.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟම ඇති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana First at 9. I'm AdaDerana joining you with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now, in your top story tonight, the Auditor General's Department confirmed today that out of the 2,296 available personnel within the cadre of the corporation, overtime payments of 998 employees had exceeded over 50% of their basic salaries. Further, it had identified substantial information on irregular distribution of fuel stocks during the fuel crisis. The Auditor General's Department has revealed substantial information about the irregular distribution of fuel stocks during the fuel crisis in its latest report. Due to the insufficient stocks of petroleum products, priority lists for the distribution of petroleum products via dealers and other consumers island-wide had been provided daily by the corporation to the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals Limited. The audit report states that between July 7th and July 18th in 2022, the CPC had not provided any fuel to 120 out of the 1,143 registered dealers. However, during this season, the audit revealed that 8 dealers had been provided more than 210,000 litres of petrol each. The Auditor General's Department also says that Lanka Auto Diesel had not been distributed to 73 dealers. The report also shows that 2,509 orders of petroleum products were distributed during the fuel crisis when there were fuel queues, but 2,524 orders of petroleum products included in the priority list were not distributed to the dealers by the Petroleum Corporation. As mentioned in this report, out of the 2,296 employees of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, overtime payments of 998 employees exceeded 50% of their basic salary. Additionally, the Auditor General's Department reveals that overtime of 391 employees, or 17% of the total employees, has exceeded 100% of their basic salary. Now, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara has instructed the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation to review and initiate necessary legal action against 618 fuel station dealers who have violated the conditions of their agreements. According to the conditions of the agreement, CPC fuel stations are required to maintain a minimum stock of 50% on all products. However, during the past week, 363 dealers opted to maintain a minimum stock for only one product, while a total of 255 dealers have failed to maintain minimum stocks of any products.
Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara states that less than half of the fuel stations operated by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation have maintained the minimum required stocks on all products last week. Taking to Twitter, Minister Wijesekara stated that this was revealed during a progress review meeting held yesterday with the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals. Accordingly, only 432 fuel stations out of the 1,050 stations operated by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation had maintained the minimum stock on all products last week. Speaking with regard to the remaining 618 fuel stations under CPC, the minister disclosed that while 363 had maintained the minimum stock for one product, 255 fuel stations had failed to maintain minimum stocks for any of the products. It was further mentioned that instructions were given to the CPC to review and take necessary legal steps against all 618 dealers that have violated the terms of this contract. The cargo plan for the next 18 months, the restructuring of Ceylon Petroleum Corporation's balance sheets, payments due to transport bowsers, the distribution of fuel under the National Fuel Pass System, the island-wide fuel delivery plan, and Petroleum Corporation's infrastructure development plan were also discussed at the meeting. Earlier this month, Minister Vijay Sekara tweeted that all dealers under the CPC are required to maintain a minimum stock of 50%, and steps will be taken to review and suspend the licenses of fuel stations that had not upheld this requirement.
Meanwhile, US-based petroleum company RM Parks today signed an agreement with the Sri Lankan government, thereby marking a significant step towards securing a long-term contract for the import, storage, distribution and sale of petroleum products in the country. Issuing a statement, the President's Media Division stated that RM Parks company aims to commence operations in Sri Lanka within 45 days after the issuance of the license. As such, approval was granted for the company to import, distribute and sell petroleum products through 150 fuel stations allocated from the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and to establish 50 new stations across the country.
In a bid to address the foreign exchange crisis of the government and to ensure a steady supply of fuel, the government today signed an agreement with US-based petroleum company RM Parks in collaboration with Shell plc for a long-term contract for the import, storage, distribution and sale of petroleum products in Sri Lanka. Issuing a statement, the President's Media Division stated the 20-year agreement was formally signed at the Presidential Secretariat today in the presence of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the Secretary of the Ministry of Power and Energy and the Vice President of RM Parks Company. Meanwhile, according to the Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara, the RM Parks Company will be the fourth supplier to enter the domestic market and will operate under the Shell branding. As such, the petroleum company will import, distribute and sell petroleum products through 150 fuel stations allocated from the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. Approval has also been granted for 50 new fuel stations to be established across the island. Minister Vijay Sekara further mentioned that the company will upgrade the fuel stations with automated dispensers, electric charge stations, mini markets and cafes. According to the President's Media Division, RM Parks Company aims to commence the operations in Sri Lanka within 45 days after the issuance of the license. The agreement marks a significant milestone in ensuring a reliable and uninterrupted supply of fuel to meet the country's energy needs amid challenging economic circumstances. This development comes after the ministry explored various strategies to overcome the challenges posed by the foreign exchange crisis and thus guarantee a continuous fuel supply to consumers. In March, the Cabinet of Ministers had granted approval to award licenses to China's Sinopec, Australia's United Petroleum and RM Parks of the USA, in collaboration with multinational oil and gas company Shell plc, to enter the fuel retail market in Sri Lanka.
Now, the Asian Development Bank has confirmed Sri Lanka's eligibility to access concessional financing following the consideration of a request made by the Sri Lankan government following the economic crisis. The ADB said the availability of concessional assistance offered at low interest rates broadens Sri Lanka's options to bridge its urgent development financing needs and will restore the economic stability and deliver essential services, particularly to the poor and vulnerable.
Issuing a media communique, the Asian Development Bank announced the approval of making Sri Lanka eligible to access concessional financing. Eligibility for concessional resources among the developing member countries of ADB is based on gross national income per capita and creditworthiness. ADB's decision was considered based on a request from the government of Sri Lanka in view of the severe and unprecedented economic crisis that has reversed hard-won development gains. According to the regional lender, the availability of concessional assistance offered at low interest rates broadens Sri Lanka's options to bridge its urgent development financing needs to restore economic stability and deliver essential services, particularly to the poor and vulnerable. ADB Director General for South Asia Kenichi Yokoyama said the ADB is committed to further enhancing its support for the people of Sri Lanka as the country responds to the crisis that has severely undermined livelihoods and well-being. Yokoyama added that the availability of concessional assistance will help Sri Lanka lay the foundation for the economic recovery and sustained inclusive growth. The ADB said access to concessional financing will also ease debt servicing pressures through more favorable ending terms.
Meanwhile, in Parliament today, Minister of Public Security Derana has confirmed that centres of the Department of Immigration and Immigration will be established in 50 divisional secretariats from the 15th of June onwards. This step has been taken for the purposes of capturing passport pictures and collecting biometrics in a bid to expedite the passport issuance process. Meanwhile, a tense situation also erupted between Ministers and the parliamentarian of the Akhila Ilange Tamil Congress, Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam, when the incident involving the arrest of the Northern Province parliamentarian was highlighted today.
පාස්පෝර්ට්ස් අපේ රටේ පුරවැසියන්ට ලබා ගැනීමේ අලුත් ක්‍රමවේදයක් සකස් කරලා තිබෙනවා. ඒක මම හිතනවා මේ රටේ පොදු ජනතාවට හොඳ දෙයක්. මම හිතන්නේ පයිලට් ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා ප්‍රාදේශීය ලේකම් කාර්යාල 50ක් කේන්ද්‍ර කරගෙන. මම ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා ඇමතිතුමාගෙන් පුළුවන් නම් ඒ ඡායාරූප ශාලා හිමියන්ගේ සංගමයේ මම හිතන්නේ 7500ක් පමණ ඡායාරූප ශාලා අපේ රටේ තියෙනවා. ඒ අයගේ ජීවනෝපායට යම් ශක්තියක් වන ආකාරයට මේ අලුත් ක්‍රමවේදය වින් වින් සිටුේෂන් එකක් දිනා ගන්නට කටයුතු කරන්න කියලා මම ඇමතිතුමාගෙන් ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා.
ඡායාරූප ශිල්පීන්ගේ ඉල්ලීම මටත් ලැබිලා තිබුණා. ඔවුන්ගේ 7500ක් විතර මං හිතන්නේ ස්ටුඩියෝස් තියෙනවා. නමුත් අපි ඒ කිසි දෙයක් නවත්තන්නේ නැහැ. අපි ආගමන හා විගමන දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ තව තැන් 51ක් විවෘත කරන්නයි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ ජූනි 15 වෙනිදා. ඉතින් මේ 51 අතන 7500 හරියට 7551ක් වුණා හා සමානයි. ඉතින් එතනට කිසිම මේ ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ වැඩ කටයුතු වලට කිසිම බාධාවක් නැහැ. උන්ගේ වැඩ කටයුතු එලෙසම කරගෙන යා හැකියි.
දැන් අපි ක්‍රමක්‍රමයෙන් මේ රාජ්‍ය ආදායම වැඩි කරගෙන යනවා. මේ සතියේ කතාබහට ලක් වෙන කරුණක් ගරු විශේෂයෙන්ම සැමට බදු ලිපි ගොනුවක් ලබා දීම පිළිබඳ. 2023 අයවැය යෝජනාවලදී මුදල් අමාත්‍යවරයා හැටියට ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඉදිරිපත් කරපු කරුණක් තමයි සැමට බදු ලිපි ගොනුවක් අපි ලබා දෙන්න යනවා කියලා. අවුරුදු 18ට වැඩි. මේක ලෝකයේ බොහෝ දියුණු රටවල තියෙන තත්ත්වයක් ගරු නියෝජක කතානායකතුමනි. ඒකෙන් කිසිසේත්ම අදහස් වෙන්නේ නැහැ මේ හැම කෙනාගේම බදු ගන්න යනවා කියලා. අපි දන්නවා බදු ගෙවන්න බැරි පුරවැසියෝ තමයි මේ රට වැඩිපුර ඉන්නේ. අපි ඔවුන්ට උදව් කළ යුතුයි.
මන්ත්‍රීතුමෙක් හැටියට හැසිරිලා නැහැ එතන. පොලිස් නිලධාරීන්ට කතා කරපු විදිය
all these people that I had interactions with that you claim that you saw on the video, do you agree are all in civils?
Yes.
My point is, you might know that they are your officers. I don't. I can't take their word for it. I can't take their word for it. If they come to a place and if they are trying to act in the name of police, they must establish themselves as police officers. You can't come in civil and just say that you are police. They refuse to produce their identity. All your assumptions are based on the fact that I knew that they were police officers.
No.
You show me in any one of those videos whether I am arguing with anybody in an uniform. You say that you have got a report. Can you tell this house that you will produce that report and submit it to this house?
Once I get the final report, I will.
So today you're talking without having a final report.
No. When you went up to the fence and when you shouted at that person not in uniform, saying Katawahapang, he was with another officer who was in uniform. Will you accept that?
The point is, Honourable Minister, again, it is not the person with the uniform that I had a problem with. The person in civils was the one who was trying to order me with regards to how I must behave with regards to a person who the people in that gathering had surrounded. Now that person who came to our gathering was also in civil, right? Who also was in civil, who was calling our meeting illegal. What right does anybody have to come and say that my meetings are illegal when I'm a member of parliament and I'm actually serving my constituents, to say that they are illegal without them trying to prove that who they are?
Whatever you say, that is not acceptable. And as the minister in charge of police, I just can't tolerate that kind of thing. And I cannot tell the police not to take action, right? Whether it's a member of parliament or whoever it is.
80,000 tourists are expected within the next 4 months, with the Cordelia Empress cruise ship reaching the Hambantota port yesterday. Stay with us after this short commercial break to find out more.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
අබාන්ස් මිඩ්ිය මෑඩ්නස් සේල් 50% දක්වා වට්ටම් සමග මාස 24ක් දක්වා පොලි රහිතව ජුනි 20 වනදා දක්වා පමණයි.
තනිව යන ගමනට නිවැරදි ගිනුම් කරන මග හේමාල් පෙරේරා. ඔබේ වෛද්‍ය ඉංජිනේරු සිහිනය සුරක්ෂිත දෑතකට ෆිසික්ස් සමිත රත්නායක.
Welcome back. The National People's Power held a demonstration today in Colombo demanding the government to hold the local government election without further delay. This is following a court order issued yesterday by the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court against 26 individuals, including party leader Anurukumara Disanayaka, from holding protests that could inconvenience the general public.
The National People's Power today staged a protest in front of the Elections Commission in Rajagiriya, demanding the government to expedite the holding of the 2023 local government election. The demonstration kicked off at around 3 p.m. today with the participation of candidates who handed over their nominations for the local government election. However, the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court yesterday issued an injunction order against 26 individuals, barring them from entering the area surrounding the Elections Commission through the 3 Jayawardhanapura Kotte Road, Kota Road and Navala Road, and engaging in demonstrations that would inconvenience the pedestrians and vehicular movement. In the meantime, the police and the Police Special Task Force beefed up security near and around the entrance gate of the Commission, with riot police called in to the premises. After holding the demonstration for about an hour, the protesters then dispersed.
Now, Sri Lanka and Maldives have signed a memorandum of understanding in the areas of cultural cooperation, health cooperation and the establishment of the Maldives Cultural Centre in Sri Lanka at the 4th session of the Sri Lanka-Maldives Joint Commission. Discussions were also held on promoting Sri Lanka as a viable educational hub among aspiring Maldivian students.
Fourth session of the Sri Lanka-Maldives Joint Commission concluded yesterday at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Colombo. The meeting was co-chaired by Foreign Minister Ali Sabri and Foreign Minister of Maldives Abdullah Shahid. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, discussions have been focused on furthering expanding bilateral cooperation in a number of areas, including trade and investment, tourism, employment, and cultural cooperation. Further, it was decided that both parties will step up their efforts to increase engagement in order to improve collaboration in these areas. The minister says that in order to facilitate implementation of agreed cooperation, both sides also decided to set up working groups in the areas of trade, fisheries, tourism, and health. Meanwhile, the Joint Commission yielded several beneficial outcomes for Sri Lanka, including the possibility of the expansion of cooperation in the tourism and fisheries sectors, as well as an agreement reached on facilitating trade and investments in the Maldives. Sri Lanka stated its commitment to expedite efforts to finish the necessary due processes in the granting of visas for students under the age of 18 on a concessionary and reciprocal basis in order to promote Sri Lanka as a viable education centre among Maldivian students. The Joint Commission concluded with the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding between the two countries regarding cultural cooperation, health cooperation, and the opening of a Maldives Cultural Centre in Sri Lanka.
Now, the inaugural cruise for the Indian tourists from Chennai, the Cordelia Empress, called at Sri Lanka's southern port of Hambantota yesterday. With the arrival of the Cordelia Empress, approximately 80,000 tourists are estimated to use the service every week during the next 4 months. The President and the CEO of the Cordelia Cruises, Jürgen Bailom, anticipates an influx of close to $18 million flowing into Sri Lanka from the operation.
The MS Cordelia Empress, with 1,600 Indian tourists and 600 crew members on board, docked at the Hambantota port yesterday. The launch of the Chennai-Hambantota Trincomalee-Chennai cruise service comes against the backdrop of a Memorandum of Understanding signed between the Chennai port and the Waterways Leisure Tourism for Domestic and International Cruise Service. A revenue inflow of 18 million US dollars is expected through the cruise line.
I think in the whole of last year, the total tourists I think the Sri Lanka had was about 720,000. The plan, as you already mentioned, was to see whether we can reach the 2 million target this year. But I think in the first 4 months we have achieved about 450,000 so far. In the month of May not counted. And of course with 80,000 coming in the next 4 months from India itself. I understand that out of all the tourist arrivals in the country, about 25% come from India. The cruise sector will play a very pivotal role and of course a significant role in this whole tourist sector in the country in the future. We will do our part in making sure that we build the infrastructure and of course make sure that the facilities are available, whether it be Colombo, Galle, Trincomalee, Hambantota, KKs, all the reports that will be.
As part of a partnership between Advantis, the transportation and logistics arm of the Hales Group, and Cordelia Cruises, Advantis Travel and Aviation will serve as the general sales agent, while Advantis Group subsidiary Clarion Shipping will serve as the port agent for Cordelia Cruises in Sri Lanka.
With our stunning coastal line, rich biodiversity and cultural heritage, Sri Lanka offers a captivating backdrop for cruise tourism, given that there is no distinction in the world that offers such diversity of world-class attractions in such a compact and a picturesque location. As an island nation with tourist attractions available year-round, cruise tourism also has immense potential to synergistically integrate with Sri Lanka's unique offering.
We have sailed since September 2021 a lot of miles, and today we are the first time here in Sri Lanka. We have passed here a couple of times on the way to Chennai. We had since then 480,000 happy passengers on board, a beautiful Empress. And all our Indian guests, they just arrived, walked off the ship like they were part of Sri Lanka. And we are so delighted and happy to sail tomorrow to the next Indian port, and the day after we're also going to go to Jaffna, and we're going to carry about 80,000 guests all the way from India to this beautiful country of Sri Lanka. So thank you very much for making us feel like home, and your hospitality is absolutely amazing. So thanks very much indeed.
What this means is that the Hambantota International Port is now ending the cruise shipping circuit. With more and more vessels calling at the port, we believe the maiden call of the Nina-flown Cordelia cruiser will be a new beginning for all of cruiser business.
Now, the ASPI closed in green today as a result of price gains in counters such as the Commercial Bank, Hatta National Bank and the Carson Cumberbatch Group, with the turnover crossing 853 million rupees. Similar behavior was also observed in the S&P Sri Lanka 20 as well. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in Hemas Holdings, Valuable Finance and John Keel's Holdings. Meanwhile, mixed interest was observed in Sampath Bank, Hales and LB Finance, while retail interest was noted in SNB Leasing, Navaloka Hospitals and Industrial Asphalts. Further, foreign investors remained active during the close as net sellers. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to the market with the turnover as the sector index gained 0.37%. The diversified financial sector was the second highest contributor to the market with turnover and the sector index increasing by 1.23%. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee ended at 298 rupees and 91 cents against the dollar today. With that, let's take a look at how the rupee fared against other major currencies of the world. Oil prices rose today on tighter supply resulting from Saudi Arabia's pledged production cut and news of a potential pause to the US rate hike. This offset worries over demand weakness and a global economic slowdown. Meanwhile, the dollar traded slightly lower today, making oil cheaper for buyers holding other currencies. At an OPEC Plus meeting last Sunday, Saudi Arabia said it will cut its crude output by 1 million barrels per day in July on top of a broader deal to limit supply into 2024 as the producer group seeks to boost flagging prices. Brent crude rose 0.8% to $77.57 a barrel, and US West Texas Intermediate crude gained 0.9% to $73.21 a barrel. There is growing consensus among experts that the US Central Bank will skip a rate hike, which could lift oil prices even before falling supply starts draining global oil inventories. Economists expect that the US Federal Reserve will not raise interest rates at its June 13th to 14th meeting, but a significant minority expects at least one more increase this year. Still, a surprise rate increase in Canada gave investors their second reminder of the week that the surge in global interest rates is not yet done. The US dollar was slightly weaker today, making oil cheaper for buyers holding other currencies. Both oil benchmarks improved and stabilized about 1% yesterday, supported by the Saudi oil plan, though gains remain capped by rising US fuel stocks and weak Chinese economic data. A larger-than-expected rise in US gasoline inventories raised concern over demand, while US crude stockpiles registered a small decline of 451,000 barrels. Welcome back. A short while ago, a bomb blast ripped through a memorial service in the northeastern province of Badakhshan in Afghanistan. So far, at least 11 lives have been claimed and over 30 people have been injured. According to a Taliban-appointed spokesman for the Interior Ministry, Abdul Nafi Thakur, a former Taliban police official, was among those killed.
A Taliban official in charge of information and culture confirmed today's explosion and the killing of Safiullah Samim, a former Taliban police chief in Baghlan. There was no immediate claim for responsibility of the attack. The bomb was apparently targeted towards the memorial service for the deputy governor of Badakhshan, Nisa Ahmed Ahmadi, who was killed in a car bombing on Tuesday. That attack in Faizabad, the capital of Badakhshan, also killed the deputy governor's driver and wounded 10 other people. The Islamic State, an arch-rival of the Taliban, has claimed responsibility for the car bombing on Tuesday. Former Afghan President Hamid Karzai condemned the attack in a tweet where he expressed that the bombing of mosques is an attack of terrorism and goes against human and Islamic standards.